Why is it that in this incredibly connected, convenient modern world, we feel this strange contradiction? We feel simultaneously exhausted, yet we are perpetually wired. It's like we are completely depleted, running on fumes, but the moment we sit down to rest, we are physically incapable of being still.
That feeling you just described, that profound paradox, is the core symptom of living in a hyperstimulated environment. And if you're listening to this, you'd probably try to solve it by working harder or managing your time better. But the sources we've gathered for this deep dive reveal something crucial. The problem isn't the lack of time. It's what we mistake for genuine rest.
Right. We fall into this trap where winding down means digital consumption. We switch from work screens to entertainment screens, scrolling feeds, jumping between notifications, watching just one more video. We convince ourselves this is downtime, but fundamentally the brain never enters a state of deep, restorative stillness.
Exactly. Imagine your brain's reward centers, that delicate dopamine circuitry being constantly triggered. When you are consuming media, when you are scrolling, those centers are perpetually lit up. The system is always seeking, always chasing the next hit of novelty, which prevents any true cognitive downshift. It's the equivalent of trying to sleep in a brightly lit room with a dance party going on.
And what happens when that system never gets a chance to truly reset? That's where the confusion sets in, the mental fog. We become worn out and disoriented. And to ease that internal panic, that high anxiety stemming from lack of focus, we instinctively reach for more stimulation. We are seeking stimulation to calm the very panic that stimulation caused, and we mistake that brief, sedating distraction for true restorative recharge. This is the endless loop of modern life.
It's a vicious cycle. And that brings us to the unspoken rule that high achievers across every discipline have used to break this exact cycle.
We are diving into monk mode. It's a philosophy that sounds extreme, but it is incredibly effective. It is directly inspired by the centuries-old monastic traditions, eliminating distraction and embracing rigorous discipline. But it's been adapted for today's goals. Whether you're trying to build a business that scales globally, trying to achieve mastery in a physical discipline like earning a BJJ black belt, or simply trying to launch a truly great YouTube channel and capture attention, Monk Mode provides the required methodology.
And the core of monk mode is a radical shift in perspective. It is crucial to understand that this is not about denial in a punitive sense. It is a philosophy of sacrifice. You are choosing to sacrifice one thing, instant, fleeting, low-value pleasure, in order to gain something infinitely greater. Focused attention, self-mastery, and the ability to dictate your own future.
That is the mission of this deep dive. We are going to unpack the philosophy, the alarming science, and the rigorous protocols of this practice so you can translate ancient discipline into a modern strategy for achieving extreme productivity and mental clarity. We are going to give you the blueprint for total life mastery.
So let's start with the definition, because monk mode is not just a trendy hashtag. It is best defined as a dedicated, private period taken with a specific aim to achieve a difficult, high-value goal, requiring intense, sustained, focused attention.
A specific aim.
Yes. The goal itself could be financial, creative, or physical. The field is irrelevant. The intense focus is the only constant requirement.
The flexibility in duration is one of its major draws, too. It's not necessarily a commitment to shave your head and, move to the Himalayas for 5 years.
Right, not at all.
It can be a short, intense sprint of 7 days to clear the mental cobwebs, or a serious commitment of 30, 60, or 90 days. We even see sources discussing people committing for several months, depending on the sheer scope of the project.
And crucially, regardless of how long you commit, the goal must be defined with extreme, almost obsessive specificity. Vague goals like, I want to be more successful or I want to make more money, are useless. They're useless because they don't give your focused attention anything solid to grasp.
You have to apply the means, the measurement, and the timeline. So, for example, instead of, I want to freelance better, the monk mode goal has to be something like,
I want to triple my current income via freelancing by leveraging new clients in the SaaS space by January 1st next year.
Exactly. Making it specific focuses all that rechanneled, intense attention into a single, high-leverage stream.
And this commitment to intense focus brings us directly to the foundational concept that underpins the entire monk mode philosophy: deep work. Cal Newport, who coined the term, essentially describes the modern superpower.
And we often talk about deep work, but let's be crystal clear about the distinction he makes. What exactly is the difference between deep work and what he calls shallow work?
Well, deep work is the ability to focus without distraction on a cognitively demanding task. It pushes your brain to its limits. When you do deep work, you are literally improving your skills, creating new neural pathways, and generating valuable output that is difficult for others to replicate. Think of an engineer solving a complex problem, or a writer crafting a crucial chapter.
And the opposite, shallow work, is so insidious because it often feels productive. We feel busy.
Right, that's the trap. Shallow work includes answering emails, responding to routine Slack messages, checking LinkedIn DMs, or scrolling for research. These are manageable tasks you can accomplish while distracted, and they require little or no true cognitive strain. But the danger lies here. The more time you spend doing shallow work, the weaker your capacity to engage in deep work becomes.
It's like a muscle that atrophies.
Exactly. In an economy where attention is fractured, mastering deep work is undeniably the skill of the century. Your attention is your most limited and precious resource.
Okay, so let's unpack how this theoretical concept of deep work translates into practical, actionable organizational strategies. It's one thing to recognize the value of focus, but how do we build the systems to protect it?
One of the simplest and most profound hacks that successful people across various industries use is the monk mode morning. This is a straightforward, non-negotiable protocol. From the moment you wake up until noon, you enforce a strict exclusion zone.
So what does that zone look like?
No meetings, no calls, no texts, no email, no Slack, and absolutely no internet access unless it is essential for the deep work goal itself.
So you are essentially front-loading all your cognitive effort into the most valuable tasks of the day before the world has a chance to distract you.
Precisely. The power is in the predictable regularity. When someone needs something from you, the reflexive response becomes, I could deal with that anytime after noon. Your colleagues, clients, and family learn not to expect immediate responses during that window. This simple, consistent framework guarantees you bank 3 to 4 hours of high-leverage progress on your most valuable goals every single day. That accumulates into massive long-term advantage.
And this framework isn't just for individuals. The sources show that entire organizations are restructuring to protect this valuable commodity of focus.
Oh, absolutely. We see businesses implementing structural strategies. For example, front-loading all necessary meetings into Monday morning.
The logic there is to sacrifice one morning to save 4.5 days.
Exactly. By confining low-value communication to a specific block, they protect the flow state for the rest of the week. They also implement what they call Deep Work Fridays, establishing an entire meeting-free day where employees are encouraged to immerse themselves in elongated focus periods.
And the communications reflect this. I've seen this. They use tools like Slack, not just to communicate, but to set helpful statuses, clearly informing colleagues when they are deep into a project and will come up for air at a specified time.
And that organizational structure is critical. Because if the company leadership encourages deep work, but then routinely disregards an employee's focus status, pinging them incessantly, it immediately negates the structure. It demonstrates that shallow communication is still the true priority. Monk mode, whether corporate or individual, requires unwavering respect for the boundaries of focus time.
Okay, that covers the behavioral and organizational structures of focus. But why do we even need these strict structures like the monk mode morning in the first place? It feels like we are fighting an internal war just to focus. We have to understand the inner game, the neurological systems that constantly pull us back to distraction. Which brings us to the most popular buzzword associated with this entire movement, the dopamine detox.
That's where we need a major correction, because the term is fundamentally a misnomer and, frankly, misleading.
So we need to clarify this for the listener. What is the popular misinterpretation versus the actual psychological goal?
Okay, so the misinterpretation is the idea that you can literally fast from the brain chemical dopamine, or that the goal is to drive your dopamine levels down to zero. That is biochemically impossible, and neuroscientists, including those working in major research institutions, have stated this clearly. Dopamine is a naturally occurring chemical essential for motor function, learning, and motivation. The small spikes you get from chocolate, music, or a pleasant conversation are normal and necessary.
Okay, so if the goal isn't to artificially lower the chemical itself, what is the core purpose of what people call a dopamine detox?
The practice, which is really a behavioral reset, is much closer in function to mindfulness-based stress reduction. The purpose is to restore behavioral flexibility and reclaim authority over impulse. We are tackling the science of compulsion which is deeply rooted in classical conditioning.
Let's delve into that conditioning because it explains why our phones feel like they have a gravity all their own.
The sources explain that when we engage in excessive high-frequency dopamine-triggering behaviors, be it compulsive social media use, online gaming, or constant digital content consumption, it floods our system with signals. Over time, this desensitizes our neural circuits, leading to chronic impulsivity and attention deficits.
And the triggers become just as powerful as the reward itself, right? That's the scary part.
Absolutely. This is the conditioning. The cues and triggers associated with the activity, the notification chime, the bright red app icon, the vibration in your pocket, begin to provoke a release of dopamine and intense craving before the reward even arrives.
Wow, so the craving itself becomes the reward.
It reinforces a compulsive loop, making you habitually check your feed whenever you feel a moment of boredom, stress, or anxiety. The urge becomes automatic.
So the strategies that work best are those designed to break this conditioned response. You mentioned stimulus control from cognitive behavioral therapy, or CBT.
Stimulus control is the direct antidote to the triggers. It's logical, but profoundly disruptive to the habit loop. You move the trigger away, or you make it difficult to access. If your phone lives in another room, or if you delete the social media apps from your home screen, you introduce a friction barrier. That friction gives your rational mind the necessary split second to intervene before the conditioned response takes over.
And then there's the more difficult internal discipline, exposure and response prevention. This sounds like you have to sit with the discomfort.
That is precisely the challenge. It involves deliberately exposing yourself to the negative internal sensations, the uncomfortable, restless urge that arises from not engaging in the compulsive action. The key is mindful observation. You notice the impulse, you observe the desire to reach for the phone.
You just let it be there.
You let that feeling of craving and restlessness peak and subside without giving in. This patient, mindful non-response is what gradually weakens the classical conditioning and degrades those deeply reinforced neural pathways.
What's fascinating here is how content creators leverage this neurology. The sources emphasize that high-stimulation content, particularly social media, is not benign. It is engineered to hijack these pathways. The addiction metaphor is strong because social media addiction activates the same dopamine pathways as many substance use disorders.
It creates a self-perpetuating cycle of dependency that starts with coping. People initially use social media as a quick relief mechanism for stress, loneliness, or depression, because it provides continuous, immediate social rewards that they may feel are lacking in their real lives.
But the irony is that the continuous use sabotages the very real-life relationships and work required for genuine satisfaction. It's a trap.
Yes. This continuous use often leads to interpersonal problems or neglects real responsibilities, which then exacerbates the undesirable moods like anxiety or loneliness. The user, experiencing these heightened negative emotions, then engages in social media even more to find temporary relief, fundamentally increasing the level of psychological dependency. It's a closed-loop system designed for maximum entrapment.
Here's where it gets really interesting and frankly quite alarming. The science confirms that overexposure to highly stimulating content can lead to literal permanent structural changes in the brain. What are the sources telling us about the physical impact?
They indicate that overexposure to highly rewarding digital content like intensive internet content consumption, specifically mentioning internet pornography, can cause the frontal lobe to shrink. There is also reported loss of gray matter in specific regions.
Let's clarify for the listener, why is the frontal lobe so important and why is losing gray matter dangerous?
The frontal lobe is the brain's CEO. It is responsible for executive functions, planning, complex decision-making, impulse control, and managing social behavior. When this area shrinks, your ability to make rational long-term choices or resist instant gratification is significantly impaired. Gray matter loss means fewer neurons and supportive cells in crucial areas, reducing the brain's overall processing capacity. This structural damage leads to a loss of behavioral control.
The structural change also leads to tolerance, meaning the user requires more and more intense stimulation to get the same feeling.
Absolutely. The user becomes desensitized, requiring a higher dose, watching more, or escalating to new and more shocking content or genres to achieve the desired dopamine release. And the critical consequence here is that the motivation system becomes chronically prioritized over the satisfaction system.
Wait, let's unpack that distinction between motivation and satisfaction. This is the cornerstone of why we become perpetual seekers but never satisfied.
This is the profound mechanism that keeps people stuck. Dopamine is primarily a chemical of wanting or seeking. It motivates us to pursue a reward. The opioid system, on the other hand, governs liking or satisfaction. In substance use disorders and in this high-stimulation dependency, the reward circuits, the dopamine system, become hypersensitized and immensely stronger than the opioid system.
So we develop a powerful impulse to chase the high, but the enjoyment of the chase itself fades quickly.
Precisely. Seeking behavior dominates satisfaction. You are relentlessly compelled to engage in the behavior, even though you often don't want to, and you derive diminishing returns of pleasure when you do. The seeking impulse remains strong, even when the satisfaction is negligible. Monk mode, at its heart, is a targeted attempt to fundamentally reboot this hypersensitized system and rebalance the wanting and liking circuitry. It uses abstinence and discipline to recalibrate the baseline, so simple things, like a quiet walk or focus work, become rewarding again.
That neurological deep dive makes the motivation for the monk mode protocol undeniable. If you are serious about total life mastery, you need the hard reset. So let's dive into the protocol itself. What does the 30-day monk mode challenge actually look like? This is where the discipline gets serious, because the explicit goal is to remove harmful agents to gain control of the mind and awaken the spirit you felt when you were younger, before all the conditioning.
The commitment is deliberately rigorous. It's a 30-day comprehensive focus on complete digital and chemical abstinence, starting with media and digital noise.
Okay, so the first pillar is media abstinence. For 30 days, eliminate television, mass media, and any digital consumption that does not serve your ultimate defined goal. This is not casual, this is total elimination of things like non-essential YouTube browsing, Netflix binging, video games, or even constant refreshing of generalized news feeds.
And the source material is quite direct about the philosophy behind this. Mass media, advertising, and constant news consumption are designed to trigger fear, anxiety, or craving, essentially acting as external mind control. By eliminating this input, you reclaim autonomy over your own thought patterns and stop allowing external forces to dictate your emotional state or sense of regency.
But the abstinence extends far beyond the screen. We have to also eliminate chemical and behavioral dopamine-producing agents that interfere with focus.
Correct. The protocol requires no recreational drugs of any kind, no alcohol, and no cigarettes for the full 30 days. It also eliminates snacking outside the eating window, as even those small hits of glucose can distract the system.
And let's address caffeine. While it is a performance enhancer for some, it is explicitly treated as a distraction in this context. Why is that?
Caffeine, while increasing alertness, also creates dependence and jitteriness. In monk mode, the goal is not artificially enhanced energy. The goal is deep, calm, sustained focus, and natural mental clarity. Caffeine can mask genuine exhaustion, encouraging you to push past the point where the brain truly needs rest. Removing it forces the body to find a balanced, natural baseline of energy, which supports the deep work state more reliably.
And the final and often most challenging abstinence: no internet pornography or masturbation sex.
That brings us directly to the ancient concept underpinning this rule, brahmacharya.
This term is often reduced to celibacy, but the philosophy is much richer than that. What is the true intent of brahmacharya in the context of achieving a great goal?
Well, brahmacharya literally means conduct conducive to Brahma, or self-restraint. In the context of monk mode, it is the sacrifice of simple, immediate pleasure today, so you may achieve something greater, a higher state of focus or mastery, later. The abstinence from sexual activity for 30 days is advised because it is believed to rechannel what is often termed life energy or libidinous energy, a potent driving force, into the focused pursuit of your ultimate goal or great work.
But the sources stress that the physical act of celibacy is secondary to the mental discipline required.
Absolutely critical point. If the body is celibate but the mind is perpetually full of lust, regret, or distraction, nothing has been accomplished. True mind control is the critical component here. It is about actively training the mind to interrupt and change its focus when an undesirable or distracting thought arises, whether that thought is lust, anxiety, or craving. You must consciously divert that mental energy to another topic, perhaps your great work or your breath. It is a daily practice of recognizing you are not a victim of your thoughts. You are ultimately their creator.
Once you've removed the harmful agents, the protocol requires adding positive, reinforcing habits that build mental and physical resilience. The first cornerstone is daily movement.
Yes. Daily exercise is non-negotiable. 30 to 60 minutes of focused movement every single day. This is crucial for mental resilience, maintaining high energy levels, and accelerating mental clarity. The movement helps process stress and provides a necessary break from long bouts of deep work.
And the sources detail the incorporation of specific ancient practices like the sun salutations. Let's explore why this specific 12-step exercise is recommended for its profound benefits.
The sun salutation is a full-body synchronization of breath and movement, designed specifically to activate the entire system. Think of the 12 steps as a moving meditation. It starts with the prayer position, designed to relax the nervous system. As you move through reaching the hands high and then folding forward, you achieve several physiological benefits simultaneously.
It's not just stretching the hamstrings.
Far from it. When you bend at the waist to touch the ground without bending your knees, you are massaging the abdominal organs, which aids digestion and detoxification. The inverted position, with the head lowered, significantly increases blood flow to the brain, which supports clarity and cognitive function for the deep work ahead.
And then the sequence moves into positions that strengthen the body for the day.
Correct. Transitioning through poses like the plank and the cobra strengthens the arms, legs, and core, and relieves tension often held in the back from prolonged sitting. By stimulating and expanding the chest and abdominal organs, the routine supports the consistent physical energy required for the mental rigor of monk mode. It is a total energy management system.
In addition to structured movement, there is the importance of connecting with the physical world, specifically nature.
The sources are clear on the immediate psychological benefit of natural environments. They cite examples of urban environments where preserved green spaces or trees dramatically reduce measured anxiety and stress, replacing them with a sense of security and peace. The instruction is to perform physical activity outside whenever possible, and even to prepare and eat meals outdoors, to intentionally retune your nervous system with the natural world and ground yourself.
And the core attribute of focus is addressed directly through meditation, which is described in some traditions as the source of magic.
And in these traditions, magic is understood as intense, unwavering focus, the ability to concentrate all available mental energy toward a specific goal, whether influencing nature, blessing food, or creating a desired future. It is about accessing the power within the mind.
So the protocol requires monk meditation 3 times per day for the full 30 days.
This specific practice is designed to be an intentional block against outside influence. It is the active process of managing the monkey mind, that constantly restless, unfocused state that jumps chaotically from one thought or worry to the next. Meditation, coupled with focused breathwork and daily journaling, are the tools used to encourage present moment awareness and radically reduce mental chatter, making room for true, deep work.
Finally, let's address the most logistically intense aspect of the protocol: the dietary rules, specifically the fasting requirement. This is the mechanism designed to reset those hypersensitized dopamine habits back to baseline.
The requirement in the HARD protocol is extreme. Fasting for 23 hours per day for 30 days, meaning eating all your caloric intake within a maximum 4-hour window, known as intermittent fasting, IF 23.1. This is a radical strategy intended to shock the system into a state of clarity.
Wait, I have to stop you there because the listener is likely wondering, isn't that level of fasting dangerous or at least completely unsustainable for most people who aren't living in a monastery and have demanding jobs?
That is a critical question, and it highlights why monk mode must be customized, a topic we will delve into further. This 23-hour fast is the maximum intensity recommendation for a complete system reset. It is designed to induce profound metabolic and psychological shifts. The sources warn that you must absolutely expect strong withdrawal symptoms and cravings, particularly during the first 1 to 2 weeks.
But the payoff is described as a rebirth.
Yes. After about 7 to 10 days, the initial cognitive fog starts to lift, and people report a brightness and profound clarity. By the 2-week mark, the clarity sets in fully, and the reward system begins to normalize, making focus feel much more achievable and natural. However, for the average person with health concerns or high physical demands, starting with less radical IF such as 16.8 or 18.6 is often a more sustainable and safer entry point to achieving the same neurochemical rebalancing goal.
In terms of what you do eat within that narrow window, the rules are also rigid.
They are. Strict elimination of junk food of any kind, and specifically no soy, and critically, a targeted emphasis on saturated fat and cholesterol.
Why the focus on fat?
Fat, particularly saturated fat and cholesterol, from sources like butter, ghee, and eggs, is deemed essential in this protocol for supporting mental clarity and physical strength. The brain is mostly fat, and providing high-quality fats is seen as a way to support high-level cognitive function during a period of caloric restriction and intense focus. The instruction is to explicitly add these fats to meals. If you eat rice, add a generous amount of butter. If you cook vegetables, use ghee or lard.
And finally, the meal itself is treated not just as fuel, but as a deep spiritual ritual.
It must be. The ideal is to prepare meals outside, if possible. But the non-negotiable element is the ritual of blessing the food before eating. This references research like that associated with Dr. Masaru Emoto's concepts, suggesting that positive thoughts and intention can impact the molecular structure of water and, by extension, the food we consume.
So by consciously blessing the food, you are changing its energetic state.
You are intentionally changing the perceived energy of the food from neutral to positive. The ritual requires eating in peace and solitude, never bringing a phone or computer to the meal, eating without distraction. You take a moment to thank your creator and the source that provided the sustenance. With every bite, you imagine the abundant health, light, and life you're receiving. It transforms the act of eating into an act of mindful, focused nourishment, reinforcing the monk mode mentality. So we've just detailed a very intense protocol. This is the uncompromising hard reset version, but the philosophy is clear. Monk mode, while inspired by rigid tradition, is not a rigid set of academic rules. It is a customizable framework.
This is essential for the learner listening right now. If I'm a high-level executive, I simply cannot implement a 23-hour fast and totally disappear for 30 days. How do we navigate that intensity and the constraints of professional life?
You adjust the intensity. The radical version involves cutting all major distractions: social media, news, dating, and non-essential socializing. But you can certainly opt for a partial monk mode. This might mean limiting binge watching to a single scheduled episode a day, or eliminating high-calorie snacking, or simply cutting out happy hour 2 nights a week.
And for those in customer-facing roles where constant availability is essential, how do you protect that deep work time without getting fired?
This is where we return to leveraging organizational strategies. You use those helpful Slack or email statuses to communicate clearly and professionally that you are deep into a project and will respond at a specified time. You must train your colleagues and clients to respect your boundaries. It requires courage, but setting that boundary protects your ability to deliver high-quality work.
We must also address the near-inevitable reality of relapses. Over a 30-day period, especially with radical fasting and media abstinence, failure is likely.
Relapses are normal, and the key is not to view them as moral failings. The advice is explicit. Do not condemn yourself. You must acknowledge the lapse, review what caused it, adjust your plan if necessary, and immediately recommit. You have to reframe that failure as progress in the long-term journey towards self-control.
And the sources even justify planned lapses if it aids long-term adherence.
Yes. If a planned Sunday cheat day where you allow yourself a single glass of wine or some pizza helps you stay rigorously adherent for the other 6 days, then that compromise is completely justifiable. The ultimate goal is long-term consistency in building lasting habits, not short-term, unsustainable perfection.
The ultimate payoff, however, depends entirely on choosing the right focus from the very start. Not all goals are created equal, and you have to assess your project based on your inherent desire and your current talent level. What are the 4 categories we need to consider?
The goal assessment matrix provides fantastic clarity. The first category is high desire, low talent. This is the toughest path because you lack the immediate positive reinforcement of success. It requires profound discipline, but if it is truly the desire of your heart, say, learning a new complicated language despite little natural aptitude, it is doable, though slow.
The second category is the ideal entry point for monk mode. High desire, high talent.
That's the obvious choice. You enjoy the process and you see rapid results. This combination is tailor-made for a monk mode sprint, guaranteeing fast, measurable success and powerful motivation.
Then we have the third category, which the sources describe as surprisingly the most rewarding, even if it feels initially uncomfortable. Low desire, high talent.
This category forces real personal growth. If you are naturally proficient at something, perhaps public speaking or sales, but you have an aversion or low desire to pursue it, it often means you're indulging in mental barriers or fantasies about who you think you are or what you should be doing. Breaking through that aversion to embrace a talent you possess but avoid leads to the most profound self-knowledge and life clarity. You break your own mental limitations.
And the final category to avoid at all costs.
Low desire, low talent. If there is neither inherent motivation nor natural knack, the effort will yield negligible results, leading only to frustration and burnout. The key takeaway across all 4 categories remains: pick one thing and give that one thing your full, undivided attention. Splitting your focus over several goals guarantees you will achieve mediocrity in all of them.
Let's discuss the single biggest hurdle for many people attempting this protocol: relationships and dating. Monk mode seems to demand a radical adjustment here.
It does. Monk mode often requires stopping dating entirely. Dating, particularly at the early stages, is described as a massive time sink physically, mentally, and emotionally. The requirement to rechannel that libidinous or sexual energy into the great work necessitates at least a temporary suspension of dating activity.
If you are in a committed, long-term relationship, the conversation becomes much trickier, as you have an obligation to share time and emotional space.
There are a few solutions presented. One excellent solution is for both partners to go into monk mode together. This creates mutual accountability and shared purpose, transforming what could be a point of friction into a shared journey of growth. If that isn't possible, you revert to the partial monk approach. You dedicate a few secluded hours daily for your deep work, but you honor your commitment to spending quality, undistracted time with your partner outside of that zone.
And while radical and difficult to hear, the sources acknowledge that sometimes the ultimate dedication to self-mastery requires an even harder choice.
The source material suggests that if a partner is fundamentally incompatible with the life goals you are seriously pursuing, if they actively derail your efforts or require more time than you can responsibly give, breaking up might be the necessary step. The philosophy is clear. It is better to end a relationship than to continuously sabotage your dream and potential.
Now let's look at the inevitable psychological cleansing that occurs when all the distractions are stripped away. When you remove your primary coping mechanisms, the scrolling, the news, the binging, your mind suddenly has nowhere to hide.
That silence forces the brain to confront its psychological baggage. Your deep-seated fears, old traumas, unresolved anxieties, and the dissatisfaction you feel with your career or relationships all surface. This is tough, often overwhelming, but it is necessary work. You cannot solve a problem you refuse to look at.
This is where journaling transcends mere habit and becomes an essential tool for navigation.
Daily reflection is the uncorking of the mind. You must ask yourself detailed, penetrating questions. How do I truly feel today? Why did I struggle to focus on this task? What recurring anxious thoughts are arising during this quiet time? By consciously capturing and confronting this psychological baggage, you gain the insight required to work through the issues, rather than just masking them with the next hit of digital sugar.
And the reward for enduring that psychological friction is the transformative payoff. What happens when the mental fog finally clears?
The primary payoff is clarity and profound self-knowledge. You gain the ability to think straight for the first time in perhaps years. You realize how dazed and impulsive you were when operating in the default state of consumption. This newfound mental clarity allows you to make major, rational life decisions that were previously impossible. Career shifts, relational changes, or solidifying sustainable, healthy habits. You fundamentally reclaim authority over your thoughts and mind, exiting the debilitating cycle of impulsivity.
And finally, let's revisit the long-term view. We have to manage expectations. Monk mode is a powerful sprint, but habit formation is definitely a marathon.
That's right. We need to dispel the myth that habits form in 21 days. Contemporary research has debunked that. Habit formation actually takes anywhere from 18 days up to 254 days, with the average being closer to 66 days for a new behavior to become automatic.
So the 30-day monk mode is not the destination, it's the launch pad.
Exactly. It is the intensive, focused sprint that builds the initial foundation. It recalibrates your baseline, demonstrating what pure, undistracted focus feels like. It is the system that makes staying focused stop feeling like a constant, difficult struggle, transforming it instead into a sustainable state of being.
We have completed the deep dive into monk mode, and what we've truly explored here isn't just a set of productivity hacks, it's the highest form of mastery. It's not about completing tasks, it's about mastering the inner game controlling impulse, focusing attention, and facing profound psychological discomfort to finally find genuine internal peace.
When you operate in the default state of constant distraction and consumption, you are perpetually tethered to external cues. You are a willing victim of the algorithms, the advertisements, and the endless notifications. As the Stoic philosopher Epictetus observed centuries ago, no man is free who is not master of himself.
Monk mode is the defiant refusal to be externally controlled. It teaches you the final, unspoken rule of self-sovereignty. You are, in fact, the master architect of your own attention and the ultimate creator of your own reality and thoughts. You decide what deserves your focus and what doesn't.
And that ability to choose is the greatest freedom there is.
The world tells you to chase every bright light, every notification, every fleeting hit of instant gratification. But we know the truth now. The final unspoken rule of total life mastery is this: you cannot lead others until you lead yourself. Don't just watch this deep dive and scroll to the next video. Take the blueprint we've given you, build your fortress of focus, and prove to yourself that you are the master architect of your own attention. If this deep dive delivered the blueprint for self-control and total life mastery you've been searching for, then the algorithms that crave substance, not just digital sugar, require two things. First, like this deep dive and put a stop sign in the feed show the system you are choosing substance over scrolling. Second, subscribe and ring that bell. It's the only notification you need, signaling that you are ready for the next level of unspoken rules. Go build your empire of focus. We'll see you in the next deep dive.